Welcome to the Futurist Society podcast, where we delve into the latest advancements in technology, science, and culture. From discussions on the latest breakthroughs in AI, biotechnology, and space exploration, the Futurist Society is your window into all of the awesomeness that the future holds. Get ready to be informed and inspired as we consider the positive impact of emerging technologies on humanity. Without further ado, welcome your host, Dr. Awesome.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Futurist Society, where, as always, we are talking in the present, but talking about the future. Today, I have a really special guest, William Smith. He is the Director of Strategy at Microsoft. He has a consulting firm, as well as being a published author in the futurist space. He's going to tell us a little bit about his book, as well as some of the stuff that he's doing with startups in the Chicago community. Thank you so much, William, for coming and sharing your insight with us. If you could just tell us a little bit about who you are and the things that you're interested in, and especially your book. I really appreciate that.
Thank you, Dr. Awesome. And you hit it on the nail on the head. Consultant, fractional CTO, futurist, have a book out as well. Very excited about the future. A little bit of an evangelist when it comes to certain things. A lot of the conversations that people have is, of course, with AI, but there's so many advancements beyond that are very interesting that people should be as aware of.
Cool, man. Tell us about your book, just so we can have something to know you by, because I know that people are probably wondering, where do we get this? I know it's on Amazon, and the name of it is Future Tech. And it's a collection of essays on emerging technologies and their impact on humanity. So tell us a little bit about it, because I do want to speak about your strength, which is artificial intelligence and that impact on humanity.
Absolutely. So, essentially the why for the book, right? So the why for the book kind of stemmed from kind of my past and my childhood, right? Like telling my older folks, right? Like what the next X is going to be, or even just how to fix their computer at this point of time right now. I've always been really interested, from like sci-fi movies to anime to different little writings and stuff. And, there wasn't really anything out there that kind of brought everything together. So what I wanted to do is kind of bring everything in a layman's terms to people, like what their child can start to learn when they're in high school or in grade school that can prepare them for the next 10 years. And the contents are generally speaking, of course, AI is going to be involved. And of course, this happened in 2020. I wrote this book in 2021, right before it got the huge AI hype. So it's all in my words and editing, no editing, from a GPT perspective. But it tells the story of, right, like, what do we think about AI when it comes to, generally speaking, that, like the three categories, and understanding like how will it be embedded into our lives, smart cities, smart factories, space factories, uh, advertising, automated cars, all the cool stuff. And, like I mentioned, the news isn't going to really promote this stuff. It's going to be more cynical, like accident happened just because of, some automated reader didn't understand an input, and some accident happened. So it's just a general, non-biased viewpoint of what I see the next future is going to be, with references to the exact publications of those academic postings as well too.
Oh man, I love that, because I have an academics background, and it's so easy to just talk from a place of experience. And I love when people bring in objective evidence, journal articles that are proving this versus that. So I really appreciate you talking about that. Let's dive into artificial intelligence, because that is certainly a strong suit of yours. You were director of strategy at Microsoft. Tell us a little bit about that. What are they hoping to accomplish with artificial intelligence?
So when I was a part of the co-pilot, I guess, generation, right before it got announced as an actual product, there was a roadshow that I helped organize within the central US. And it was more like an educational purpose of understanding, how can customers prepare for the next generation when it comes to AI and preparing their data. How can they understand it from a chat GPT perspective? And so these would be conversations I have with technical leaders, business leaders, and generally speaking, Microsoft at a core level makes products for enterprise scale, and they make them for as many people as they can. So there's not necessarily a specific use case that they're just honing in on. They make products for everyone, small, medium, and large. And what's the middle in between them is what Copilot tries to solve. It may not be as good as others like Gemini or Claude or the Nine, but what it does very well is it provides a environment that any enterprise customer can easily get its hands on if they pay, of course. So it's generally speaking very understandable, very easily integrated in the features that we're very accustomed to. And quite frankly, what they're trying to invest into next is, of course, expounding on those services. Each service will have some point of AI capability. So I know they mentioned, Satya mentioned, in I think build this year, but also essentially the next few years that they're going to start integrating those tool sets with AI. So plain Jane Excel is going to be a lot more easier to create documents and create spreadsheets. So is Word, so is PowerPoint, especially PowerPoint because it needs help. But overall,
Some people
just
would say PowerPoint is my love language, so I take a little bit of offense to that. I love making PowerPoint slides.
I do too. It's just, it's just so hard to get. It's just hard. I,
Yeah, no,
I
it's monotonous, and I started using AI for slide creation, and
yeah,
also for just like creating an outline. So I see like some of these gimmicky kind of not, I wouldn't even say gimmicky, but like they're shortcuts, right? Like they're shortcuts. And so like if I have a lecture on something, I'll say, give me an outline for this lecture, and it'll create an outline, and then I'll expand based on my own knowledge base on that stuff. And that definitely helps. Like the organizational component helps. But I feel like when is it going to transfer into our lives in what I think that the best case scenario is, which is a true co-pilot, right? Which is, I'm saying to this person, hey, let's make a presentation about this together. And no, I don't like the way this looks, that kind of stuff. When is it going to feel natural? When is the layperson going to be able to get uh more out of using a kind of a lame software like PowerPoint?
I would say a lame software. I like how you put that in there. I'll say, generally speaking, it is like you say, still in co-pilot mode. So we're still driving the ship. It's just giving us everything that we need to be good at driving and helping us pave the road, navigating. You know, Generally speaking, it needs to get to a better generalized um, AI perspective. So
Mhm.
that AGI perspective where it may not be totally comprehensible as a human would be, but enough to be understanding of the specific tasks and diversifying those tasks into subtasks and then coming culminating back together where it's able to distinct based on this research what we can do. And generally speaking, people put it in years. They say 10 to 20 years. That's when generally we'll have AGI. And you know, I'd say in the next 10 to 15 years, one of the things that will be kind of more revolutionary is, like you say, more AI assistants. And then assistants lead to actual directors and organizers. So the next renditions, right? The next 5 to 7 years, We may have more robotics placed engines, whether there be software or hardware, right? Like we may have a robotic butler soon, and
I
it can
can't
do
wait.
tasks, right? Do tasks, right? Like imagine Dr. Awesome, right? You got a robot nurse and handling you the specific tool set, and you
Yeah.
have visualization of
Man,
your
I would take a robot to do my laundry or to wash my dishes today. Like today, I would spend that money. Give me a price tag and I would pay it. I can't
yes,
wait until that comes out. I don't think I even need artificial and general intelligence. I think I need something that is going to take away all of the mundane tasks, right? That's what I'm looking for. Like, is that a 10, 15 year time frame or is it going to be that long?
all the tasks. So like you mentioned, going home, like right, like it has to be a specific, it's going to be kinks in the road, right? Like it's going to be issues, like any software that you bring out, it to be perfected, there will be bugs. And I'll say you'll start to seeing the first ones to roll out that can, like you say, be the housekeeping bots, right? Like it does all the tasks. So it's like Roomba on steroids, where it got
Hmm.
legs and it can actually move things and how
Hmm.
you want objects to be placed. There's a startup that I advise, and shout out to Guillermo. He has a startup that helps housekeepers efficiently, not only efficiently clean houses because they have the exact way that it's supposed to be written. But imagine, right, like they take that formula where they pre-train how the house is supposed to look, and then the AI assistant or the AI housekeeper comes in, start putting it the right way it needs to be. If something's right here, like if it's a cat, and then put it right back where it needs to go. And yeah, awesome, right?
Yeah, I can't wait until that happens, man. But the reason why I wanted you to talk about your time with Microsoft is first off, I'm a big Microsoft fan. I think that uh I was probably one of the only people to own a Windows phone. I was a real big time, like huge fan of all of the things that Microsoft has put out. And the thing that I like about Microsoft is that it gives accessible software to those three tiers that you talked about, right? Like you could have somebody like as a Fortune 500 company and their stuff could be running on Microsoft. You could have a food truck and their stuff is running on Microsoft, right? The wide range of technology offerings that Microsoft has, to me, I think democratizes technology. And I feel like all too often people worry about the fact that it's going to be expensive, it's going to be out of reach for me. Like for example, like the Apple Vision Pro, the augmented reality, virtual reality, it's so expensive that most people cannot afford that, right? Like it doesn't provide value for somebody that's living, check to check, right? But their Android phone really does provide a lot of value, right? And like that to me, I feel like Google is a much more democratic company and that they have technological offerings for everybody. And so I guess my question to you is, what do you see coming for the layperson? Like what can they be excited about other than, the work kind of stuff, which is, the helping bots and everything like that. What would you say to somebody who, like your parents, right? Your parents might not have the technological know-how that you and I do, but something is coming down the pipeline for Microsoft for them, other than just like having a robot. What do you see coming down for them?
Yeah, and really quickly back to your Apple Vision remark. I did a product test review for it, and you mentioned a great thing, right? The price of it sucks, but another thing that sucks too is like how relatable it is from its previous product line, and then how ergonomically it is, right? Like I felt like my face was just pulling down as I was just watching things. So I agree with you. Like some of those things need to be worked out. But back to your question, I would say, immediately, I think that a lot of great things is happening, right? Like um, the first one, right? Like ChatGPT is happening, is really bringing out a good wave of just instant innovation, right? Like it's helping us get ideas out, make make pictures, make different things. That's awesome, right? Like it's enough to get people dangerously started. And then that's going to evolve over time where it can actually just be like, okay, well, listen, this ain't been made yet. Like, hey, you could actually work with this thing out. One thing I'll speak on that's the first answer is quantum. Quantum is coming very soon. I talked with a few experts here at the booth, Chicago booth, and they mentioned that there's at least a 10-year roadmap. So within the next 10 years will be a rollout of innovation when it comes to quantum. So right now, academia and certain situations, use cases based, but eventually we'll start having MacBooks and quantum. So that thing is instant. The second one I'm interested in, I mean, I don't know if my parents are interested in more automatable cars. I know a lot of people are starting to talk about, you know, essentially like having those farms where automated cars kind of just park themselves. But you know, the Teslas are able to kind of recall and retract as they will even now. And you know, in specific areas, like they face legal backlash because of how much they give and how much they control. So it's just always a battle of who's right and who's wrong. But I'm more excited about like the technology of just being able to drive because, you know, that makes more safer roads. You know, people want to have control, you know, but essentially, right, like these computers are a little more faster to the chain than you are. So I'm more excited about that. And then another one that I say I'm excited for um is smarter homes. Like I grew up kind of within that smart house age. I don't know if you remember that movie Smart House from Disney,
Yeah.
but it was pretty cool seeing that house. Like it was like our first like AI of the 90s. Well, it wasn't the first, but it was kind of a cool Disney spin of it. But I liked how like they knew when to wake up. They had AI assistants to help them with the stuff. It could detect if one of the kids were having some problems at home or school. So that same rendition, right? You have privy to your own house, your own family, where if you know, not to say it like this, right? Like your kids may not tell you everything. The AI can patternize based on behaviors if there's been a fluctuation, right? And not just puberty. We're
Yeah.
talking like if there's been like bullying at home or bullying at school or you know anxiety from a test. Um, you know, coming in, lights on, lights off, music when you get ready. So things like that, right? And instead of you telling Alexa to do this, it's already programmed to kind of run in your own algorithm.
Yeah. No, I think that there's a lot of benefits to having smart technology. Like, let me give you an example. I took this AI class at MIT, just as like a elective thing that I'm doing, not associated with any degree or anything like that. It was just this certificate that they were offering for AI in healthcare. And right now they're working on this thing that you wear for Parkinson's patients, and they can tell by the movement the difference between the person who has medicine that's working versus medicine that's not working. And so like I think that sensor technology is going to be like a true breakthrough, but I do agree that right now there's a lot of people that are looking at this, and it's really interesting to see what they're creating in regards to that. I feel like your mention of the Disney Channel show and their spin on artificial intelligence is something that I feel like we're dancing around a big interest of mine, which is science fiction, both in the Disney offerings. You know, anime is something that you also mentioned, which I'm a huge fan of. You have some utopian science fiction and you have some dystopian science fiction. What do you think are the best examples of utopian science fiction that actually have a real promise for happening? You mentioned Smart House, but I'm sure you consume a lot of science fiction the same way that I do based on our mutual backgrounds. But that being said, I find that like for me, I always look back at Star Trek. I think it's the most ideal utopian science fiction. But you know, there's lots of other ones out there, and I want to know what your thoughts are on it.
And that's a good question because it's like, I like a lot of like mecha space type ones. And of course, Alien probably isn't going to happen unless they genetically modify a cat to like just kill us all. But that's a good question. Cyberpunk is one of my favorite games, and it's based off the old Cyberpunk and in rendition to what it is now. Um, it's almost like gonna be that in a way. Not to say where it's like gonna be everyone's all crazy and warped and whacked out, but it's just like I feel it's gonna be a more freer society, a more liberal, not to say it in a political way, but a more um robust society where you'll have people that are opting into augmentations, right? Like, like how we have now, right? We have people who opt into reduction and they fix their face. But imagine like implants, smarter
Oh my God, I
systems.
cannot wait until augmentation is something like the idea of cyberpunk, you know, having the ability to increase your strength or your uh mental capabilities. My God, I cannot wait until that people think of that as dystopian. I really think of it as utopian though. I think it's a
Yeah.
lot of interesting things that are going to happen if we get to that point.
Yeah. Imagine like you just going and you got the mantis arms, and then you like, oh, sorry, let me pick this up for you. And it's a car, and you're just like, ugh. It's just,
Yeah, I know.
be
I can't
awesome.
wait. Yeah. So no, that's cool. I like cyberpunk as a genre. I think that, you know, some of like the stuff that's crazy to me from cyberpunk science fiction is the whole idea of uh your digital self, right? Like to me, I think that's something that might be a little bit scary for people. You know, I think that there's lots of things that people are scared about with artificial intelligence, but I think that the idea of people having conversations completely in the digital world, you know, you're just sitting next to each other and you're having a conversation with each other, like in Ghost in the Shell or something like that. That is something that it scares a lot of people, right? They have this idea that conversation should happen the same way that we're having it now through sounds that are produced by our vocal cords, heard by our ears, and that seems very scary to them. What would you say to people like that?
Yeah, it's gonna be hard kind of convince like my parents, right? Like I made a joke uh trying to convince my mom like a picture is a deep fake, like this was generated. It's gonna be just ridiculous. I'd say, even back like you say the dystopian and how things are kind of like blurred because like even like with stuff like Black Mirror where it's like ultra real but then like there's a dark twist to it. Taking the dark twist out of everything, right? Like just thinking of things in the future and like how our lives are going to be different. I say like, you know the first rendition of that is definitely like digital twins, right? Like you have a digital entity that is ran with multiple simulations, and it's the digital rendition of like the realistic one. For example, Michelin created one with partnership with Microsoft for the Michelin tires, and they created it in a way where it can track how long it should normally last, how long it'll last on different conditions like normal use, rough roads, higher elevation, XYZ, different types of cars. So, thinking of that through, right? Even with the simulation, I don't know if I know you watched Black Mirror. There was a one where they created simulations, and like 1 second of ours was like 10 days for the AI entity. And it's like that those types of simulations can be ran when you have a fast-paced computer, deep calculations and understanding with the algorithms, but also this digital twin being assessed and AI being rendition as well. But to explain that to my older folks, geez, that is hard.
I know it's hard. Yeah. I mean, I think that it's until we give them something that is of true value, right? Like a robot that's able to wash their dishes, there's always going to be this sense of fear associated with these technologies, you know. Obviously, uh, you're in artificial intelligence, everybody's saying that this is an existential threat, that this is something that could really turn out poorly for human beings, and that's a lot of that is because of dystopian science fiction paving the way for that idea, right? When people like your parents probably think about artificial intelligence, they're thinking about the Terminator, and they're thinking about, you know, really low hanging fruit when it comes to pop culture references, right? Like, what do you say to people like that, you know, that are scared about artificial intelligence?
Yeah. And it's the uphill battle. A lot of people are really fearful what they can't control. And AI is something that, everybody has accessibility to, but they can't control, nor can they stop the rapid change of it, right? Like when you get older, you get comfortable. So when things change, you feel a little anxious. So the best way I can explain, one, this is going to be here, and it's just a harsh reality that you'll have to kind of just be comfortable with. But true, just try to understand it and know that, yes, there are negative cases in this scenario, but there's a lot of benefit. A lot of people are benefiting from the current wave of AI innovation, but also it's a way that we can better our lives, better our trajectory into the next generation, helping our situations, wealth planning. There's a startup that I deal with that deals with wealth planning, and one of the things they use is to use AI to kind of help um, the older generation to kind of understand like what are some of the things that they continue to do and need and ask, and provide it as a service. Then another one that I'm aware of, there's a retirement home or somewhere out there, I can't remember, but they use AI assistants, like little robot bots, to kind of help them help their patients who are, in-term patients deal with loneliness. So it's a lot of great use cases, but it's just the Terminator, like you say, is the one that everyone knows about.
Yeah, I hear that. I mean, I think that those examples that you cited, once people adopt them, they'll be like, oh, they'll be a little bit more comfortable for that. I'm really interested in just a wide variety of use cases that you just kind of mentioned. You know, you on the one hand you have wealth planning, on the other hand you have this nursing home. Just out of my own curiosity, like, you know, we have a small to medium sized company, 200 people employed. It's in the medical space, obviously, but it's realistically just like clinics, right? I have not found any beneficial artificial intelligence uh, offering that would help us, right? And I feel like we're in that in between space, you know. I mean, we're using Microsoft products, so maybe Copilot or something like that might be able to make us more effective. That being said, do you know of anything that would help a small company like ours be more competitive? Because that's one thing that I do worry about, is that, you know, it's going to go to companies that they don't need an advantage, right? Like JP Morgan does not need an advantage for artificial intelligence, right? Like I want artificial intelligence to help companies like my size, and that I don't know if that exists as of yet. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, yeah. Now you brought up a um good viewpoint, because the wrong people are going to keep doing the wrong things with it, right? Like you got those bad actors, sorry, like Anonymous, and sometimes they kind of work in our favor, but sometimes they kind of go off wall. But as far as the size of the company you're referring to, um, you know, essentially, they have so many products that you can kind of think about, and we don't have to go too deep into the use case or the problem or the business. But one thing I noticed that really works very well for customers, you know, from a marketing perspective, it can help with generating content for social media, pictures that you can kind of make that kind of relate to the content that you're making. Um, there's even been use cases where you can there's a service that you can have that acts as a lead generator where it'll physically reach out to people like a bot and funnel them into that next chain of events. And that's more on the sales portion of things. Another instance where AI can be very beneficial, very useful is collaborations between teams. Sometimes some teams can't necessarily get to customers, so they have AI customer bots, both vocal and text. um and then also, right, like communication towards each other. So if I'm unable to answer or unable to kind of go or describe their problem, you can have an AI assistant kind of describe or diagnose the situation and provide that report to someone. And I can also list the specific products, but big, not knowing too much about the business, that's one of the few things I could say.
Yeah, no, I can see the fractional CTO coming out in that response, which I really appreciate. The um just describe a fractional CTO for people who might not be aware of what that is, if you don't mind, just for a few seconds.
Yeah, so fractional CTO, no different from a regular CTO. It's just its time is fractioned. So not necessarily too vested in the future of the company, although, right, like we want to see you guys do best. It's more about solving the immediate term problem. So if your immediate term problem is finding candidates for building an app, building an app, uh, assessing the reliability, cybersecurity of a solution, some of the things that they kind of look out for. And generally speaking, we're, you know, technical people for the non-technical.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, the reason why I was asking is because uh I guess my question is like, when do you become involved in a company? Like, is a fractional CTO really for companies my size, or can a restaurant chain that owns like three restaurants be gaining some value from someone like yourself?
Yep. It could be any size. It could be small, medium. I usually see interim for more enterprise level. But generally speaking, small and medium are usually the best because, thinking of a smaller business to especially ones like healthcare, we constantly need a technical leader. However, you may be building a certain product that doesn't necessarily require constant technical assistance. And then you can leverage someone that can come in at certain hours or certain peak points where you need that person, and then you can scale them off. So,
Mhm. Yeah, cool. Well, I mean, it's certainly something that we're looking at, and I was just wondering, kind of your take on it. We haven't made the jump quite yet, but I feel like it's coming. Everybody has a CTO these days, like McDonald's has a CTO. It's something that is increasingly necessary, I feel like, in the technological age that we are in, because the technology is very difficult to keep track of. It's always expanding. Someone like you might be on the cutting edge of it, but someone like me is not. And so that is something that I think that is really valuable for really any company. I just don't know where to start. So thank you for sharing that insight with us. We are coming close to the end of our time, and I did want to ask you the three questions that I ask all of my guests, which is really general questions, and definitely interesting when I hear different perspectives from someone like you versus like a biologist versus someone who is making robots. But the one question that I always start with is, where do you gain your inspiration from? And the reason why I wanted to bring it up is because science fiction is something that you highlighted. I do want to talk a little bit more about science fiction because it's something that obviously I'm super interested in. So tell me a little bit about the science fiction that inspired you.
absolutely. And you know, I grew up kind of liking the anime like Gundam and uh,
I
you know,
love Gundam.
dude,
Such a great series,
such a great series. And
and
then
such a great commentary on the evils of war, right?
yeah,
That
yeah,
philosophy behind it all was really powerful, I thought.
Yeah, and there's so many that I can list, but some that kind of come like that. Ghost in the Shell, like you mentioned, was a big one.
Hmm.
Cyberpunk was a huge one, especially with the book. And I've always been really focused on technology to the point where I literally have dreams about like, inventions and ideas, and I kind of like think and write it through. And one actually that got me into programming was I saw Iron Man when it first went out in the movies,
Hmm.
and Jarvis came up on the screen, and he had that picture where he was like going through the scene, and he was like going through Jarvis and did that, and so intrigued because it's like, I went to a school where they weren't very technical focused. And it really inspired me, but a teacher of mine's helped me learn Java because that would be the entryway into this type of field. And combined with like all the cool anime, like Outlaw Star and Ghost in the Shell. There's so many I just don't know I can't
Hmm.
think off offhand, but
Yeah, no worries. I was mainly interested in like which ones were the most influential for you, and it sounds like the ones that first came out were really
Gundam.
important to you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
I love Gundam, and I feel like not only is it a great commentary on war, but it's the type of future that I could see elements of things that I would want to have. Like I would want to have satellite colonies in space. I think that we're limiting ourselves by being on this planet. And if we don't have a viable method for living outside of this planet, then it's very limiting. Like one meteor strike could destroy the entirety of our race, right? Or our entirety of our species. And the other issue that I really liked about it was the idea of augmenting human capability that it still looked human, right? Like mechas still give you that human resemblance. And to me, as somebody that was, you know, always interested in increasing like my performance, I was very early on shown that like I was limited by my genetics, right? Like there's no way that I'm going to be able to lift a car. There's no way that I'm going to be able to, fly through the air or anything like that. But if you do have the abilities to lift a car or fly through the air, it doesn't come in like a human form, right? You have to, get a crane to lift the car.
Exoskeleton or something. Yeah.
Exactly. Like I really think exoskeletons are going to be a revolutionary moment for us. We don't have technology that looks human, right? Like what we've been doing is augmenting humanity's capabilities, and it doesn't look human. It looks like what is easy to manufacture, or what like an airplane looks like an airplane because it's aerodynamic, and there's certain physical aspects of it that are really important to achieve, like the ability to lift off and have backwards propulsion and things like that. But it doesn't look human, and it would be nice to be able to fly or have the experience of flying and still look and feel like a human being.
Exactly. Or
Yeah.
like a Gundam plane just
I know. Well, they had the transforming ones, right? Like they had the Macross, I think, was the one that had like the
Yep.
in-between phase. They had like they had an airplane, and there was like an in-between phase, and then the
Big.
human form. Yeah.
Yep. That was a
Yeah.
good one, Macross. Robotech.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. That was like my first entrance into anime. It was like a VHS tape that my friend who lived in the same neighborhood let me borrow. And he's like, dude, I just saw the best movie I've ever seen before. You have got to see this. And so I biked over to his house, picked it up, put it in, and my life was changed forever after that. It was a really uh, interesting view on what we are capable of as a species if it comes to that.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, I
cool,
love
man. Well, what about the second question, which is who I ask everybody, or what I ask everybody, what is some other technologies that you are interested in other than artificial intelligence that are coming down the pipeline that you see? I mean, there's so much advancement happening in all these different industries, right? I mean, like medicine, robots, all this other stuff. What is some stuff that you're seeing as somebody who is a fan of futurism and science fiction, that you just can't get enough of. Like you're like, oh my God, like another they just made a breakthrough in this. Like I can't believe that we're so close to this, you know?
I'm big in I keep an ear out to hearing about space because I love, like, in Chicago we have the Adler Planetarium and they have different events, and I'm generally interested in learning about, like, the different clusters of constellations and different things like that. So
Mhm.
any type of space tech or deep space tech that comes out is pretty awesome. Quantum is another one that I mentioned. Uh and then, smart homes, like off the grid homes where they're fully functional and sleek and modernized is good. There's one more that I'm like, hell yeah. I think it's nuclear fusion.
Yeah. Yeah. Fusion is, they have a fusion plant just a few blocks from me in Cambridge. Like they're
Wow.
closer than they've ever been, but I don't know. Everybody's always says fusion is another 10 years away, but
Yeah.
I've been getting a lot of news relatively recently. I don't know how real it is, but I agree with you. Like if we were able to make clean energy at that scale, that would open up so many other technologies. We wouldn't be limited by power consumption anymore, right?
And you got quantum, nuclear fusion, space tech. Man, it's looking good.
Yeah.
Keep this up.
So like the space technology is something that I feel like would be great for your parents to see, right? Like that's something that would raise the consciousness of everybody, I think. Like if we land on the moon again, that would be a great moment for humanity. And I think that they have another
Mhm.
mission plan next year. So hopefully that
Yep.
will be interesting to watch. But yeah, man, I agree with you. All those things that you mentioned, I'm really following and I love. I can't wait for that co-robot that is able to fold my laundry though. That's something that I'm really excited about. So last question, you're in the artificial intelligence space. What do you see the industry like in 10 years? Do you think that it's going to be uh permeated through our lives at that point? Do you think it's going to be everybody has artificial intelligence, or is it going to be so two questions. Number one, is it going to be permeated in our life? Number two, is it going to be realistically like only in certain people's hands? Like by that I mean companies. Like is it just Microsoft, is it just Google, is it just OpenAI that are going to have AI and then they just kind of give it out to the masses, or is it going to be much more democratized?
Yeah, yeah. Definitely going to be more permeated. So, you know, I think it was Mercedes-Benz that talked about integrating ChatGPT into uh its smart solution. So, you say, hey, Mercedes, it's going to be a chat GPT assistant. I mean, it's not, the interface is going to utilize it, but it's not going to be just it. So it's going to be smart. So yeah, so it's going to be more permeated, more, like you say, smart, compatible solutions, that ambient computing, with, like, for example, if I'm on the phone and I'm talking to someone and I move into another room, that conversations go into the next room. So heavily permeated. And then, like you say, is it going to be gatekeep? Like, is just the big boy Microsoft and Google is going to be touching it? Good question. Now, right now, I think the reason why those people are doing so well with it is because they have the money to invest heavily into the infrastructure to hold it. I don't know the specific dollar amount, but I know that Microsoft spend a huge spike in its electrical production just from the training alone that it needed to do to generate Copilot. And that was enough to kind of have concern over its water cooling um, system. Now, yes, it's going to get better, like from an instance of, like, more efficient, more interfacing to it. So I think they're going to try to gatekeep it in a way, because, and then also too, we haven't had a huge lawsuit or issue that's happened. And that's another thing that's going to be a deciding factor too. Like, you know, let's say I come up with a killer idea and I use ChatGPT to make it. who has the full rights, me or ChatGPT? So those are things that we haven't had a chance to get to because we never had to those points yet. But to answer your question, I think it's going to be a little more gatekeep, unfortunately. But that's not to say that there's going to be more projects to introduce open sourced AIs, right? Like we have them starting to be made right now, but like I said, the cost isn't the execution, it's the training, and training it can take months, weeks, days, depending on how much you contribute to it.
Yeah, I learned about that in my AI and healthcare class, and I think that it really all matters is just the amount of data that you can feed to it and how fast it learns. But let me ask you just quick follow-up question. Do you think like the big bottleneck is power, or do you think the big bottleneck is compute?
It's a healthy two. So if it was faster computational, then yeah, it would take less energy and then be quicker. So I would say in a way it is computational because now to a point, the traditional computers, only way they're gonna get better is they scale horizontally. So more
Mhm.
computing versus, vertical, which is just beefier hardware. And the electricity portion of things, yeah, I mean, we're starting to use those neural chips, and before they were using these ASIC chips to even do things like crypto mining and stuff. So that is still going to be a concern. Generally speaking, I don't know where it's said, but the it the the computation requirements are going to have to double in the next 2 to 3 years. And I don't know where that article is from, but imagine, right, you're going to need double the electricity and double the computation. So it's almost like it's a hand in hand relationship. The more computation you need, the more electricity. So
Yeah,
yes,
that's cool, and you can see why. Just to your point about quantum computing being such a game changer, that's goes hand in hand with that, correct?
yeah,
Yeah,
quantum's going
cool.
to change everything, man.
Man, I would love to have another conversation just about that because I still don't really feel like I fully understand it. I think that it's this ethereal thing, from my idea of like quantum computing, I'm thinking of like Schrodinger's cat, right? So you have this box, there's a cat, is it alive or dead? You don't really know. It's at one point in time it's alive, at another point in time it's dead. And it's kind of like this weird like in between. That's really my extent of quantum. Like I don't really understand too much of it beyond that. And unfortunately we are out of time. So I would love to have you back. Let's talk more about science fiction and anime. Give me some watch lists or something like that. I would really appreciate that for the next opportunity to speak with you, William. But thank you so much for coming on. It was really interesting to me, and I'm sure that it's going to be impactful for our audience. And to our audience members, thank you so much for tuning in. Always really appreciate having you. And please, please, please like and subscribe so that we can continue this thing going and making sure to spread an optimistic view about the future. So thanks again, William. Thanks again to our audience. We will see you in the future. Have a great day, everybody.
We appreciate you taking part in today's episode. Take this chance to reimagine a better future by joining a community of futurists who strive for a remarkable world. Be a part of this growing network and contribute to making the world a more positive place. Visit thefuturistsociety.net and subscribe to the show so you don't miss a drop of hopeful futurism.